The Two and Out CFL podcast with Travis Currah and Sheldon Jones starts now.
And good evening to you. Sheldon Jones is away from the show for tonight. His dad's celebration of life was tonight. So Sheldon and family, we are thinking of you, and we'll lock it down to recap week 20 of the 2025 CFL season. And we're just not long after the Toronto Blue Jays beat the Seattle Mariners 6-2 in Game 6 of the ALCS. So there will be a Game 7 that will go tomorrow night. I'm sure many Canadian baseball fans going to be watching that, no matter how frustrated Milt Stegall may be. If you watched the CFL on TSN broadcasts on Saturday, he did have to wear quite the outlandish shirt, I guess, as chosen by Laura Dykin, because his New York Yankees lost to these same Toronto Blue Jays. But after seeing Shohei Ohtani's performance in Game 4 for the LA Dodgers, doesn't it feel like, whoever goes to the World Series is just going to be fed to the Lions? But hey, you got to play the games, right? You got to play the games. So let's recap week 20 of the CFL season. And it started in... It's Winnipeg. Yes, the Saskatchewan Roughriders and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, where the Bombers get a 17-16 victory, and they have now clinched a playoff spot. But I have to think, and we'll see as the live chat kind of fills up as the show goes on, that they cannot be very pleased with the performance or very encouraged about the team's prospects going forward. To be in that 112th Grey Cup, joined by Machine Gun Kelly playing the halftime show. I knew that would get some sort of reaction. You know, whoever does the halftime show gets reaction. He's one of those guys that, he seems to make news all the time. He's got, the paparazzi following him around. He's always making headlines for better or for worse. So it does bring some attention to the CFL. He seems to be a pretty polarizing figure. I don't know if that's always bad when it comes to gaining TV ratings, and that's what halftime shows are for, right? But we do stay Canadian for the pregame show. I think we can call Our Lady Peace legends now, and they're going to be playing the pregame show in Winnipeg. I still have to think slim pickings to get somebody to play halftime in Winnipeg. Richard saying that this Winnipeg and Saskatchewan game was the hardest game of the week to watch, and yes, I would agree. But it's wild. Saskatchewan sat a lot of their starters, and Winnipeg had a lot to play for to clinch the playoffs. They're coming off that loss against Edmonton. Before that, they crushed the Ticats 40-3. And I'm just puzzled by what the Bombers put out there. And I have to think Bomber fans extremely nervous going forward about how that offense is going to look. Zach Collaros did go 15-24, 182 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. And that interception was, it wasn't good. The game actually started with Trey Vavel of the Bombers fumbling the opening kickoff. And that actually ended up in the end zone for the Riders. So the Riders taking a lead here. And the Bombers did answer back with a touchdown drive of their own. Ontario Wilson getting into the end zone there. And then, as you can tell, the rest of the way, grinding, field goals here and there, that kind of thing. It just wasn't an exciting one. But again, has to be very concerning for the... for the Bombers here. The Riders do fumble the opening possession of the second half. That did lead to a Sergio Castillo field goal. But where I start to get concerned with the Bomber offense is there were certain moments in the second half Brett Lothar misses a field goal. Trey Vavel returns that bad boy 62 yards, and the Bombers go 2-out. And what's puzzling to me was the lack of work for Brady Oliveira here. There was a 5-yard completion to Carrick Wheatfall on first down on that drive. And Brady did get 16 carries here, but I found like the timing was very, very strange. And then they threw deep and they go 2-out. So they don't take advantage of that great field position there. And it felt like the Riders kept the Bombers working in poor field position, and they just could not get out of it. And then in the fourth quarter, I really thought that Winnipeg, it just wasn't going to be their night. There was about 4:24 left. It's 1st and 10 on the Roughrider 33-yard line. I still can't believe the play call here. Some guy on Twitter was arguing with me that it was a good play call. I'm maybe for Saskatchewan and their sake, but Winnipeg is trailing by 2. All they need is a field goal to take the lead. Saskatchewan's down to their third-string quarterback. They're just evaluating guys. They're trying to stay healthy going into the playoffs. And then the Bombers call a passing play. Zach ends up throwing into double coverage. DeMarcus Fields picks this thing off, and it's Rider ball. Of course, third-string quarterback, Jack Cohn in there. The Riders don't do anything with it, but that could have been absolutely disastrous for this Winnipeg team. I'm just still, like, that area of the field, first down, trailing by 2, and you don't give it to the guy that your offense is running around. I found that completely bizarre. Winnipeg ends up getting the ball back with just under 3 minutes to go. And then would you look at that? They give the ball to Oliveira. He has a 16-yard gain. They actually have to they had to convert like a 3rd and inches. They do. They kick the winning field goal with 45 seconds left, but the Riders take a pyramiding call. So that gives the Bombers a first down. They kneel out the clock. They win the game with time expiring there, 17-16. I mean, as a Rider fan, you kind of wish that we didn't have to worry about player health and all this stuff, and you'd be able to. And Elks fans, I got texts from several of them saying, I feel kind of dirty about this. I'm cheering for the Riders tonight. And they just didn't pull it out. the backups did their best, and they made Winnipeg work for it, but it just wasn't quite there. And I know Nick Dembski didn't play for the Bombers, but man, like, if there was a game where Winnipeg should have beat Saskatchewan handily, it was this one. And I don't know what it's going to look like going forward for them. I know it's a hosting year in the Grey Cup, and that's a big talk. At least they're in the dance. Chris in the chat saying, as an Elks fan, he needed a shower after after cheering for the Riders in that one. I love that. But they clinched the playoff spot because the second half of that Friday night doubleheader was the BC Lions beating the Edmonton Elks 37-24. There still was, like, the candle is just sort of about to go out. There's just a little bit of wax at the end of it. The wick is dwindling down for the playoff hopes for the Edmonton Elks, and then it just got extinguished with a loss at BC Place. The Lions 37, the Elks 24. At halftime, though, it was tied at 10. But you have to remember the circumstances where it goes into half tied at 10. Because the Elks controlled the ball for much of that first half. They were leading on time of possession. They were forcing the Lions to punt the ball away, which was, I mean, encouraging. You look at the BC Lions drive chart early on, punt, fumble, which what a great play by J.J. Ross, and he's had himself a nice few games here for that Edmonton Elks defense. And then punt, 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 punt. And then everything changed. I would point to this as the turning point at the end of the half, where the Lions go 8 plays, 81 yards, and eat a minute off the clock. What just happened? The Lions just turned it on. The Elks had no answer, and you have to think going into the half there, that had to be demoralizing. There have been times when this Lions offense, they are just masters of clock management in the CFL, especially with the way that this team can move the ball. And then it felt like it was just too much for the Elks to overcome. And credit to, the Lions defense in this one actually as well. We're going to have to get to a few plays and a few moments, because the Elks had been pretty good at protecting the ball up to this point in the season. I believe Cody Fajardo only had 3 interceptions on the season. However, he threw 3 interceptions in this game himself. And then they couldn't run the ball. That's the bottom line. It seems like this Elks team is pretty hard-pressed to win if Justin Rankin can't break free. He can't Freddie Mercury against the opposing defense. 11 carries, 36 yards for Justin Rankin. Their leading rusher was actually Cody Fajardo, 4 carries, 38 yards, and a touchdown for him. So that Lions defense, the way that they've improved, their D-line, they made some actually late additions to the D-line that have made an impact. I'd say TJ Lee, him coming back into the fold has really changed that defense as well. But there was a moment here, and I got an email from Bart, who says this was really bizarre. It was a 3rd and 1 play where Cody Fajardo converts it. And I mean, obviously converts the first down. And I think everybody in the building probably thought it was first down. Everybody watching at home did. The commentators did. But they spotted him short. And Mark Killam actually had to, and this was in the third quarter. At the time, it was 27-10 BC. Mark Killam actually had to challenge that and to get that fixed. But what Bart's saying here, it's clear on the replay that the refs just missed the play. It can happen. They marked it as a turnover on downs, but the replay was clear that he got the first down. So why in the name of all things good did Killam have to challenge the play to get the right call? The replay center interjects on all kinds of other plays. Why not one so obvious and impactful to the game? Now that is absolutely a great point. Sometimes the replay center comes out and they'll interject and they'll fix things, and then on this one force the coach to throw the challenge out there, where he should have never been forced to do that in the first place. That drive did end in a Edmonton touchdown. Benjamin Victor getting the big touchdown there with his big long reach there to cut BC's lead to 10. But what happened was just at the beginning of the half, Robert Carter Jr. With an interception there, and he's probably going to be BC's nominee for Rookie of the Year. And they just announced this past week, I think there are 112 players eligible for the Rookie of the Year, and I think we've had a pretty good rookie crop in the CFL. Robert Carter Jr., one of those that's making headlines several times this season. Earlier this year, that big interception where he he made everybody go crazy for that one. He has the pick six in this one, and that hit that he had on Curly Gittens Jr. in this game. Whenever there's a big hit, I'm always like, uh-oh, where's the flag? Where's the flag? There was no flag. No contact to the head. It looked like Curly had the wind knocked out of him, and he was able to return to the game, which gets a big thumbs up. But I think that's one of the things I've loved about football that got me into it. And yeah, for this guy's what? $1.75? I think if we're lucky, let's look him up. He said after the game, nobody sees me in the weight room, but I promise you, I'm in the weight room. And it clearly was apparent there with that big hit. Okay, it says 175 pounds on CFL.ca. And I'm wondering if it was one of those things when he's getting weighed in and he, puts his finger or maybe a couple rocks in his pockets there. But okay, we'll get to the live chat. There's some good things here, but Robert Carter Jr., another great performance. Maybe the hit of the year. I'd say as after Labor Day, the hits became more violent and maybe a little bit more clean as well. And that's really good to see. I love to see that. And then after that interception, Nathan Rourke with that 70-yard rush. That was deflating. That is the one that put the Lions up 27-10. How do you... It was a broken play. It was an RPO kind of thing. Rourke keeps the ball, and then he's like, well, I guess I'm going with the run. And he outran everybody, including Tyrell Ford, who is a very fast player. But to see him put on the Jets like that and take that to the house was incredible to see. I think, let's see what the live chat thinks about this. I think that Nathan Rourke is the MOP. I don't, yeah, and Chris saying that was the rush that showed he should be MOP. I don't think there's a doubt that Nathan Rourke is the MOP of the CFL this year. Now, he does throw turnovers, but I think the Lions are okay with the give and take with him. Nathan Rourke on the year, 4,922 passing yards, 28 touchdowns to 15 interceptions, but then he adds 10 rushing touchdowns. And as evidenced by that 70-yard run, they're not just the 1-yard plunges from the 1-yard line. This guy, he's got a 9.3 rush average. He's run for 559 yards this year. Nathan Rourke is making it happen in 2025. Tim Capper, he says, hey, if Davis Alexander has stayed healthy, it'd probably be between him and Rourke. And I think I would agree as well. It does seem like the chat is, hey, Colt Alvarez, I know you're a big Alouettes fan. I like Davis as well. He just hasn't played enough games. And we're going to talk about that Alouettes game soon right away here. Just the toughness that Davis has displayed this season. Maybe a little too much for his own good. But the young guy, he recovers quickly here. Chris says, hey, Tom Valesi and his crew are my absolute favorite. Tongue planted firmly in cheek. Referring to the reviewed third and short. Terry, BC Lions fan, saying, I only got 2 of my pick'em right and fantasy over 100. Next week's picks are going to be hard. They will be. You'll have to... I think what's going to happen here, and if you look ahead to next week, Ottawa, Hamilton playing meaningful football, Ticats should win. Stamps going to want to force the BC Lions to win Saturday in Regina so they can host a home playoff game, which that's going to be interesting. Are the Riders going to want to rest their starters again? saying that they rested them this week against Winnipeg. Next week, they've got the game that still doesn't mean anything, and then the bye before the West Final. So do you want your starters not playing effectively for 3 weeks? That's an interesting strategy for them. So Calgary's going to want to go to Edmonton and get that win. But I think Edmonton, I don't think they're actually going to roll over and let Calgary do that either. So that leaves Montreal and Winnipeg. So if Hamilton beats Ottawa, Montreal, they don't need to beat Winnipeg. Maybe they go ahead and rest their starters on the road against the Bombers. So there are still teams playing for something, which is all right. It's good that not all 4 games are going to be preseason games, basically. Leanne saying she tried Krispy Kreme for the first time today, saying it was not life-changing, didn't like it at all, and says she'll stick with fresh co-op donuts and will leave the Krispy Kremes all to you. Well, Leanne, I'll have you know that I'm not a discriminator of any donut, and I'll like any donuts that are sent my way. I will say this. I was privileged enough, and I do acknowledge my privilege, that I had a behind-the-scenes tour of the Krispy Kreme facility in Edmonton, and I got to have donuts fresh out of the fryer. I will say that was a game changer. Yeah, that was totally the game changer, having them fresh out of the fryer and seeing them travel through this waterfall of glaze. Maybe that changes my perspective on the Krispy Kremes a little bit. Colt, I'll take the Krispy Kreme over the Tim Hortons. However, yes, hot light is on. If the hot light's on, that changes it, Tim. Now, the thing is, my all-time favorite donut is the Honey Cruller. And there are some haters of the Honey Cruller because they argue that the inside is wet. Travis doesn't love the donuts, but the donuts love him. Yes. So I do really like the Honey Cruller. I'd love to hear about the favorite donut in the live chat. We'll try to get back to the BC Edmonton game and kind of wrap it up a little bit. 8-Bit Paul was in the stands, saying an exciting game at BC Place. That interception by Robert Carter Jr. was massive. Yes, it was. He agrees with the Rookie of the Year nominee out of BC. And then it was just like, actually, Rourke throws an interception here too, but the following drive, TJ Lee gets the interception there. Keon Hatcher gets into the end zone, and Fajardo, did he get picked off on 3 consecutive, or maybe 3 out of 4 possessions there? It just was too much. Jackson Finley getting an interception there too, and the Elks kind of make it respectable with that Fajardo rushing touchdown at the end, and that effectively ends their season. Mark Killam at the end saying that Trey Ford still has a future in the CFL. Is it with Edmonton, though? That is the big question. He still has 2 years left on his deal. Cody Fajardo does not have a contract after this season. So Ed Hervey's got some decisions to make. But I do think that now, I think there are some positives that Edmonton has. They have a core to build off of, whether it's Justin Rankin. I do think they need some more talent in the receiving core, and maybe some of those young guys there, they've got some invaluable experience this year. They didn't really have much of a veteran presence there. I know Curly Gittins and Keon Julian Grant are there, and Stephen Dunbar ended up getting hurt, but I think that experience that those guys gained this year will be big for the offense. But we'll have to see where they go at quarterback. Can they afford? Like, you have to assume, does Fajardo deserve a raise? got some interesting decisions to make. Colt, at this time, BC is hosting a playoff game. However, if they lose to Saskatchewan next week and Calgary beats Edmonton, then Calgary would be hosting the playoff game. So BC is going to need to beat Saskatchewan to guarantee that if Calgary beats Edmonton. So that's the beauty of Week 21, the fact that things are not decided going into the final year or final week of the year. Improby saying that he thinks Cody will play another season. Austin saying Fajardo is great and underrated. Yeah. Tractor tires. Yeah, there's lots of love for the Crueler in the live chat. I'm loving it. I love what Chris is saying too. Cody was taking the blame in this one. He's a heck of a leader. Yeah, I don't know if he was kind of pushing it. As soon as I think the Elks realized that BC was shutting down the run, it was going to have to be on Cody a little bit there. And they just couldn't quite get it there. And then the thing with Cody is he kind of got cast aside by Saskatchewan. He wins the Grey Cup in Montreal. And I'm not going to blame Danny Machocha and the Alouettes for casting Cody aside, quote unquote, because imagine if they lost Davis Alexander. And after all the time, the years they put into developing him inside that system, they couldn't afford to let that go. And now Davis Alexander's undefeated in his young CFL career. So they couldn't let that go. So Cody goes to Edmonton, and here it is. But starting that season 1-6, I know we'll all say that the CFL season doesn't start until after Labor Day. Those June and July wins and losses, they all count the same at the end of the year. We do have some Alouette fans in the chat, so let's move on to Saturday. I mean, these two games on Saturday are a little bit tougher to talk about because they were just drubbings. I know Ottawa ended up making it look a little bit respectable at the end of the day, but the Alouettes getting a 39-28 win over the RedBlacks. Ottawa did make them work for it. We'll definitely acknowledge that. And Montreal only went into the half with a 16-10 lead there. So Ottawa was very scrappy in this one. But Davis Alexander early in the game lands awkwardly and kind of hurts his elbow. He sort of shakes it off. And then a few plays later, he's back in the game. And he gets hit in the elbow by a defensive lineman. And he's played through it. And he played through it the rest of the game. He was making, the throws he needed to make. And I think that's going to make it interesting next week. I think if Hamilton beats Ottawa, I don't know if we see Davis Alexander that whole game against Winnipeg. There's just no point to maybe aggravate what has gone on there. Again, I'll say he's a young guy. He seems to, wake up the next day ready to go. But who knows how he's feeling like today after playing through that and loosening up on the sideline and making it happen. There's no doubt that he's a tough guy. There's no doubt that he's a warrior there. But it might be a situation to watch in the last few games of the season here and into the playoffs. Montreal quickly got off to a 13-0 lead. I guess I'll highlight the running back here, Stevie Scott III. He had that touchdown, the first one of the game, that put them up 7-0. And right off the bat, he was running like a madman. He had a 19-yard rush on their first play from scrimmage. And then that play when Stevie Scott ran over the Ottawa DB, DeAndre Lamont, chef's kiss. That was absolutely beautiful. So the Alouettes did not have too much of a rushing attack this season. After Walter Fletcher kind of goes off into the sunset, we have Travis Tice injured. We have Sean Thomas Erlington injured, and Stevie Scott in this one, 5 catches, 52 yards, 13 rushes, 63 yards. Going into the playoffs, I do think this Alouette team has found their rushing attack, and that's going to be very helpful to their offense going forward. Tim, man, he is an encyclopedia of Alouette knowledge. I love this. He says so many streaks came out of this Owls game. They've now won 11 straight versus Ottawa and a dozen in a row at TD Place, also known as Percival Molson Stadium West. It came through on the broadcast. Alouette fans, they were there. They were loud. They were proud. Ole, 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 ole. Like they were having a great time in Ottawa for that game. They were doing great. Now, Montreal gets off to a 13-0 lead. Maybe they gave Ottawa a bit of a momentum shift in the second quarter when they went for the fake punt. And I'll tell you what, Daniel Adeboboye was making special teams tackles in Toronto. He's been kind of spelling off William Stanback for the RedBlacks offense here. But that tackle he made on Joseph Zima was quite impressive. I know it's the punter, but that was a heck of a stop. And that actually led to Tyree Adams hitting Geno Lewis in the end zone to bring the RedBlacks within one score. So there we go. Tyree Adams did get the start for the Ottawa RedBlacks. 27 of 44 in this one, 3 touchdowns, also 3 interceptions, 286 yards passing there. I don't think we can go forward without acknowledging Tyree's toughness, without acknowledging his fight. He fought hard. He also took a lot of punishment. That Alouette front was in his kitchen all night long, and he stood in there. He took some shots. They only did get 3 sacks in there. Jeffrey Canton-Arcou got one. Mustafa Johnson, who, by the way, is he the most underrated D lineman in the league? I think he might be. He might be up there. Joshua Archibald, he got a sack too, and Sean Oakman, if I remember correctly, he took himself a penalty in this one. But with the guys like 6'10", for him to not make helmet-to-helmet contact, I think it might be pretty tough for him. But this Alouette defense, they are so physical, and I think that if the opposing offense, if they don't have their, is it chi? If they don't have it centered, they can get very frustrated and take a lot of penalties here. Darnell Sankey had 10 tackles. He got into a ball battle with Tyree Adams, and the Alouettes even got a blocked kick in this one. Bubba Bolden might lead the league for the best name right now as well. Tim saying that 7 buses of Owls fans actually made the trip. That's awesome. Yeah, it's only about 2 hours, hey? From Montreal to Ottawa. That's so good to see them take over there. Another player that I think needs to get some love for the Alouettes here is Austin Mack. Now that offense is much than they've ever been. I know everybody, I've seen some moments in the chat. Tyson Philpott picked, was a popular fantasy pick this week. 3 targets, no catches, which is tough to see. this week. But Austin Mack, since coming back from the NFL, it feels like just the past few weeks, he's fully back. He's back to that, rookie of the year form he had a few weeks ago. In this one, 5 catches, 108 yards, and a touchdown. And then Tyler Snead, 7 catches, 114 yards from Davis Alexander, who protected the ball, 21 of 31 with 2 touchdowns, 328 yards. There was one of them, the one where he got his arm hit by the D lineman. I don't know how they completed that pass. I think it was to Charleston Rambo. But, yeah, I think that was a fail on the DB at that moment. But the Alouettes, they just controlled the game. As it went on, it was clearly they were just sort of overpowering the Ottawa RedBlacks here. It wasn't perfect, I guess you could say. As soon as the Owls got up 35-13, then the RedBlacks, they fought back and they had a few, touchdown drives there. Keelan White gets a touchdown, and then Adebaboye gets a touchdown. I would say that Lewis Ward onside kickoff may have been the best onside kick I've seen. Like it was unreal. He got the perfect bounce. He didn't have to fight for it, didn't have to jump for it. And so that helped Ottawa make the score look a little bit better than it was. I wonder if Alouette fans, and there are a few of them in the chat, I wonder if there's a little bit of concern with the discipline. And I know that these are two teams close in geography, back-to-back weeks. They can get pretty fired up that way. But if you look at the penalty yards, the Alouettes took 8 for 86 in this one. Ottawa did take 5 for 46, but the Alouette team, they can play on that line, I feel a little bit. And that's something they're going to want to clean up as it goes on. In this one, Jose Maltos Diaz tied the team record for most field goals in a season. Sorry, Rider fans. This does tie Damon Duval's 2009 season. You remember when the 100th Grey Cup happened and they made all of these sort of documentaries? And they were great. I thought those Grey Cup docs were great. But Damon Duval, no remorse for getting a second chance at that 97th Grey Cup, the 13th man Grey Cup in Calgary. So he's the current team record holder, but good chance that Maltos Diaz breaks that record next week. Colt saying Stuart Johnston needs to make the Alouettes RedBlacks a Labor Day weekend game. I wouldn't mind that. What if it was in Ottawa for Labor Day weekend and in Montreal for Thanksgiving? Would that be a okay compromise? Because I do think those Alouette fans, the pictures I was seeing for Thanksgiving was unreal. Turkeys coming out of fryers. Those Alouette fans, they know how to do Thanksgiving. So maybe if you do the one in Ottawa and the one in Montreal, I would have to think that would make a pretty good compromise to have these two teams playing. But the Alouettes getting a victory over the RedBlacks, so that forces Hamilton to play meaningful football next week against these same Ottawa RedBlacks. The last game of the week, those Calgary Stampeders crushing the Toronto Argonauts 44-13. I don't see much to talk about in this game other than maybe it's a confidence builder for the Calgary Stampeders. Vernon Adams Jr. was open about his confidence being shaken a little bit. And in this one, it feels like one where the Stamps are kind of back. I know that the Argos are the Argos. They're up front. Their offensive line hasn't been the best. I guess to say the very least. They haven't been able to run the ball. Their quarterbacks take punishment. But right off the bat, Adrian Green intercepts Jared Dagey, takes it to the house for another pick six, and the Stamps take the lead. And then they just rolled all the way to victory. Dominic Rhymes getting a touchdown in the first quarter. Tevin Jones getting a touchdown in the second quarter. Jalen Philpott getting a touchdown. So they were just making it happen. They were dancing crazy dances. The defense, oh man. 4 sacks. Dagey was just, he was taking punishment. Bailey Devine Scott was in there. Sean Peterson Jr. got a sack. Charles Wiley, Jalen Hutchings. Now, at the beginning of the season, Hutchings was just an absolute monster. Like, this guy, he was keeping quarterbacks on their heels, very, very worried. But now he seems to have come on a little bit again here. And in this one, the Stamps, am I correct here? They started 2 Canadian starting cornerbacks, and they made it happen. At the beginning of the year, that defense, that D-line was making it really difficult on opposing offenses. And then it's the physical play that the Stamps brought to the house too on offense as well. Dedrick Mills, I do not know if he's been getting enough love across the league, but we'll give it to him right now, because in this game, Dedrick had himself 14 carries, 115 yards, so over 8 yards a carry. He had a touchdown there, and then receiving, he also had 2 catches for 62 yards. So when your running back is getting yourself 177 yards from scrimmage, you are laughing. So we'll look at my fantasy lineup, because there's a lot of fantasy talk in the chat. Terry, she's thrilled with what Dedrick Mills did for her lineup, and I know some folks struggled in fantasy this week, but I had 132.6 points. Too little, too late for me to call it a good fantasy season, but the Alouettes defense got me 10. Rourke, he was my captain, so he got me 58.4. Dedrick Mills got me 25.7. I had Mario Anderson, the backup running back for the Riders. The Bombers were able to shut down the run because he only had 7 carries for 7 yards, and then I think he had 2 catches for 2 yards or something like that. I had Keon Hatcher, who got me 20 points. Ontario Wilson got me 13 points. And David Ungerer III of the Toronto Argonauts, who got me 1 measly catch for 5 yards. But it still added up to 132 points on the week. We are running the Patreon Fantasy League. The winner at the end of the season is going to get a CFL jersey of their choice. Here's the deal. Elad Benezra, I probably butchered the name, has 1,566 points. I'm actually 9.4 points back of that. And then 4 points in front of me is ODMR12. So 10 points separating first and third. It's going to come down to garbage time to decide who is going to be getting that. Oh, yes. And Shania Twain was in the house. Let's see if there's anybody in the chat here that, yes, Tim got it. The highlight of the game. Tammy as well. Was she the first one? The CFL Rabbit making a return. The camera didn't show it. They run a play. This Rabbit's like, I don't know. I think the Argos could have been flagged for too many men on the field. Vernon Adams Jr. chases this Rabbit off the screen, and then right by, yes, I did choose an Argo. Mario Anderson, he did get taken out of the game a little bit, and he did come back, but he was ineffective in this one. So Shania Twain comes out on the horse. I am impressed by Quick Six and his reaction to the CFL Rabbit. I do not think I could find this on the fly. But years ago, like when the CFL Rabbit scored a touchdown, it must have been the Labor Day game. Somebody made like a CFL football video game cover with the rabbit on the front cover. I don't think I could find this live on the fly. I can't do it live, but there seems to be several rabbits that live in the vicinity of McMahon Stadium. And I absolutely... Yeah, it was Labor Day 2013. Something like that. Yeah, and the rabbit makes a leap over the goal line, and the stadium goes wild, and it was an absolute highlight of that season. I loved it. So, Vernon Adams Jr. He only had 14 pass attempts in this one. 12 of 14, 213 yards. Now, he did take a hit, and they ended up taking him out of the game. But on those 14 pass attempts, 3 touchdowns, no big deal. Josh Love comes in, and he goes 5 of 8 for 67 yards. I didn't think he looked too bad. The leading receiver for the Calgary Stampeders, number 85, Jalen Philpott, 6 catches, 98 yards, and the touchdown there. And Kevin Mittal for the Toronto Argonauts, 10 catches, 69 yards there. Touchdown Jake, 7 catches, 92 yards for touchdown Jake. He takes a big pop in this one, but he also gets another hurdle in there. So he's got, off the top of my head, 2 successful hurdles. When he tried it against Edmonton, got absolutely smashed. so that one didn't work there, but hurdle and Herslow. A good story for the Argos coming out of this season. I just have to say, Vernon Adams Jr., he looks totally comfortable now, doesn't he? Seems like he's got his mojo back. And for Calgary fans, that is great news. Now, there still is a chance a playoff game could happen in Calgary. If I'm a betting man, I do think it's going to happen in BC, but we'll see what happens there. Winnipeg, they're likely going to be crossing over and playing Montreal or Hamilton next week, but we'll get to that right away here. There are 3 teams that are not in the playoffs this year. Toronto Argonauts, they actually had 3 quarterbacks going here. Jarrett Dagey, 15 of 19, 119 yards and an interception. Tucker Horn went 4 of 8 with an interception. Max Duggan, 13 of 16, 109 yards and a touchdown. But that was, near the end of the game there. So, the quarterback situations for these 3 teams. The Argos going into next year. Is Chad Kelly going to be back? I'm not convinced. I don't know what the chat thinks on this one, but I don't know what the Argos are going to do. We'll see. I do think that they still have some players and they've still got coaches there to turn it around quick. Unlike Ottawa, I kind of wonder if it's just going to be tearing it all down again for the RedBlacks. I saw something, I don't know if this was accurate, but the last time an Ottawa football team has had back-to-back winning records, it's been 50 years or something crazy like that. Even when they won the 2016 Grey Cup, they were under 500. So while it can be considered a winning season. Maybe the regular season wasn't the you know what? I'm going to count that one as a winning season. Okay, the 2015 team, 12 wins. The 2016 team, they had 8 wins, but they won the Grey Cup. They had an identical record in 2017, but did not win the Grey Cup. 11 wins in 2018. And then after that, it gets pretty dark. 3 wins in 2019, 3 wins in 2021, 4 wins in 2022, 4 wins in 2023. Hey, they actually had a winning season last year, 9-8-1. And then this year, 4 wins, and it's rough again for them. So I see a lot of changes there. As for Edmonton, the other team not in the playoffs, I actually think there's a lot of positives now going into next season. They're going to have to figure out the quarterbacks. They got their star running back, the defense with J.C. Sherritt. They got some young guys there. They started coming on. Ed Hervey's going to solidify that as the GM going into next year. So if I had to rank those 3 playoff teams, I'm probably going to go Edmonton, Toronto, Ottawa going into next year. I don't know what Ottawa is going to do. If we look at the standings, there's been some questions about that. So here's the thing. BC, Calgary, both 10-7. So Friday night, Calgary plays in Edmonton. Calgary is going to try to win that game, and that's going to force BC to get a victory in Regina to host the Western semifinal. It does look like Winnipeg, either way, they're crossing over to the east. There was a question in the chat. Is there any chance that the RedBlacks beat the Ticats on Friday night? It could happen. I don't think it will, but if that does, that makes the last week of the regular season actually pretty wild. It would force Montreal to get a victory in Winnipeg, and then there'd be a flip-flop. It would be Winnipeg going to Hamilton for the East semi and Montreal hosting the East final. So that's it. Hamilton win, they host the East final. It's as simple as that. And all they have to do is beat the Ottawa RedBlacks, a team that has nothing to lose but nothing to gain as well on Friday Night Football. That's the second last weekend of the regular season. I would love that, Austin, if the Bombers crossed over and end up being the visiting team in the Grey Cup. I think that would be absolutely wild. I would like to think that they have to use the visitors' dressing room, but I bet you there's some sort of rule in there that they don't, that they get to use their own digs. But I could be wrong. About that. I do want to take a quick look at USports football. There were some wild games this past week and some playoff positions happening here. So coming into this past week, Wilfrid Laurier and Western were both 7-0. Wilfrid Laurier smashed the Mustangs 60-13. So they're going to get a first round playoff bye in the OUA. And I don't know if anybody. I could be wrong, but it feels like they're gonna get back to the Vanier Cup. This is wild. McMaster beating Carleton 41-39. Carleton took a lead with a little over a minute to go, and then McMaster drove the field, missed a 27-yard field goal. As time expired, it would have been overtime. Well, Carleton takes a 15-yard penalty. McMaster gets to re-kick from 12 yards out, and they win 41-39, and that makes Carleton miss the playoffs. The Manitoba Bisons were down 10 to the Calgary Dinos in the second half. They come back. They win 33-31, so they have clinched a playoff spot there. And the Regina Rams beating the Alberta Golden Bears 22-20 as they sit on top of the Canada West. They're second technically to the Huskies. They're both 6-1 there. Yeah, and 21,000 showed up in Quebec City for Laval and Montreal. So I know we like to talk about expansion in Canada, in the CFL. I don't know, man. I feel like Quebec City would be like to get them to care about the CFL, and there would be some amazing atmospheres out there. Laval ended up beating Montreal 16-6 on Saturday. Well, that brings us to the end here. 8-Bit Paul, thank you for the super chat. Holding down the fort. I think we're going to wrap it up. That's week 20 of the 2025 CFL season. I'm in a pretty good mood. I had 132.6 fantasy points. I go 4-0 in Pick'em. I just wish I could be talking like this in week 2 and 3 and 4. But I finally put it all together, kind of like the Edmonton Elks. I was just too little, too late. When it comes to putting together my predictions and my fantasy lineup and things like that. You can rate, review, and subscribe to Two and Out on your favorite podcatcher. And YouTube as well. You can join us live Wednesdays, Sundays, or whenever we go live and chat out the CFL football with me and Sheldon Jones, who's going to be back on Wednesday to get us ready for the final week of the regular season. You can visit twoandout.ca. You can support our Patreon there as well. Take care of yourself and each other. We'll talk to you soon on Two and Out.
The Two and Out CFL podcast is written, produced, and hosted by Travis Currah and co-hosted by Sheldon Jones. Subscribe to Two and Out on all major podcast platforms and YouTube to keep up to date with future shows.